Good.
Solid.
Good to go?
Good to go.
All right, cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Dream Job Podcast. My name is Riley Warren. I'm joined here by my host, Shannon Jacobs.
What's up?
And we are so excited to have an awesome guest with us here today. Mrs. Julie Davila is here, PAS President and Adjunct Faculty at MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Looking
we can't wait. I know it's been a long day for us, and we've been out in the sun judging some drumline contests.
Wait.
What?
Can't start without me.
What?
Oh, wait.
What? That's Julie's husband.
He's here.
He's here. Oh my gosh. That's Lalo Davila.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
He's here. He's ready to go. And there's an extra microphone. And
Chair's too low.
apparently,
Oh no.
There we go.
there
That's
you go.
okay.
Oh, we found him. There he is.
Well, how convenient that we set up a whole extra microphone and stand.
Right.
For this awesome extra surprise guest that we have. Welcome, Lalo.
Well, it's good to be here. Welcome, everybody. Pilot to co-pilot.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for being here. It's been a joy to get to work with you over the last day, Julie, and Lalo got to see our students as well, and we just have so much admiration for both of you guys, just legends in our profession, and have really had an amazing impact on percussion in so many levels, and so we're just so thankful that you guys were able to make the time to be on our podcast today, so thanks again for coming out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So every time we have guests on, we just like to give everyone a chance to just talk a little bit about their own personal journey in percussion, kind of from very beginning origins of interest in music, or starting maybe in middle school band to kind of where you are now. But since we have both of you guys on, we want to maybe pause that at where y'all met at University of North Texas, because I know that was a really impactful time. So ladies first on the podcast,
okay.
Lalo. So we'll give Julie a chance to start here, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Yeah, my journey was pretty traditional for the most part. I started in percussion in 5th grade. Actually, I was in Indiana at the time, and they didn't really start percussion until 6th grade, but my brother was playing saxophone in the jazz band in 8th grade, and I went to every concert, and I was talking with the band directors, and they would say, "What are you going to play?" And I said, "I'm going to play drums." I always wanted to play drums. And so they kind of snuck me into a camp that was for 6th graders as a 5th grader. And so I felt, pretty special, like getting an opportunity to start a year before everyone else, or the summer before everyone else. So I just kind of started taking private lessons. I was in an area where there was a lot of people marching Madison Scouts and Cavaliers, being from Indiana and the Illinois connection. So my Scott Lang was one of my first percussion directors or instructors. And he was like probably 19 or 20. He was really young. And, I was probably I probably frustrated him for the most part, because all I wanted to do was play snare drum. And he wanted me to learn, rudiments and scales and that kind of thing. And I wasn't about I just wanted to play snare drum,
Yeah.
So I did middle school band. My father was transferred when I was finishing my 6th grade year, and we had a great band program there in Kokomo, Indiana, and I was so devastated that we were going to move and leave. I was so excited about going to the high school and being a part of that. But, thankfully, my parents moved to a great area. We moved to Kansas City, the Kansas City, Missouri area, and I was able to become a part of the Blue Springs High School area. There was like Blue Springs, Lee Summit. My parents were looking at a couple different schools, and they landed on Blue Springs, and that turned out to be just such a blessing.
Yeah.
But when I was in 6th grade, I was just playing snare drum, just being a good snare drum student, and the 8th grade drum set player for the jazz band and the swing choir and all those things got kicked out of band, and the band directors came to me and said, "Do you own a drum set?" I guess they saw, something in me that they wanted to nurture. And I said, "I don't own a drum set, but I will by Monday. I'll have one by Monday." And I went home to my parents and I was like, "We need to buy a drum set. I want to play in jazz band. I want to play drum set. I want to learn how to do this." And thankfully my parents supported that, and they found a blue Vista Light drum set in the paper, like garage sale or something.
Wow.
I came back to school on Monday with a blue Vista Light Ludwig drum set. And so I played in that whole year. I played in jazz band, and I had a great teacher who was just super patient, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. And then I ended up at Blue Springs, and I spent, the rest of my time there in junior high and high school. I had a great experience. We did a lot of neat things. We marched in the Macy's Day Parade, and we did the Rose Bowl Parade, and it was a great experience. I also was actually an athlete in high school, too. I played basketball. So I was kind of juggling that a lot, and I ran track, and so it was really a tough juggle for a while to be in a band program that was active and still not give up some other things that I really loved.
Sure.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I had some people that were willing to work that out for me to be able to do both. I really believe in that.
Yeah.
And, high school is a time where you should be able to try a lot of things, and I think that becomes more and more a challenge these days. Everybody wants to pigeonhole kids.
I know. It's tough. It's
It is
tricky, especially
tough.
for us as educators. I mean, we're certainly guilty of that, and we certainly try to do everything we can to let students do a lot of things. I think the thing we come back to a lot, just a quick aside, is just if a kid is dedicated and really wants to pursue multiple things, we're all for that.
Yeah.
Right? The onus is on the kid, though. Right? It's up to them to set the schedule. It's up to their parents to be invested in both and to communicate and all those good things. And every time we've had basketball captains, students on the football team, and not just in band, but in percussion as well. And we always find that, as long as there's good communication, we have this kid on the dance team right now. And that's, two highly competitive programs. But I think as long as the communication's there and the teachers are supportive and they work well together, then it certainly can be a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also, what comes into play is the other coach, or like they have to give too. Sometimes
Yeah.
that we end up giving, because we want this kid to be a part of our program and we want them to be able to do both. And then sometimes on the other side of that, you don't get that,
Yeah.
Right.
So those are communication, conversations with the others as well. But I think that playing basketball and running track, that athleticism really, I feel like it really contributed to, I think percussion is very physical, and you have to have a certain amount of grit and it's,
A lot of grit, not
a
just a
lot of
certain
grit,
amount.
certain
A
amount of
lot.
grit.
A lot.
Yeah, and I just think like athleticism helps us in that, and I was very,
Definitely.
I was a drum set player. So once I bought that drum set, I just just dove into drum set, and that's all I wanted to do. So I was playing lots of drum set, and that's very physical, so I think that worked out pretty well for me. And then I wanted to go to North Texas when I graduated high school, but I was honestly a little nervous about going to a big music school like that, and particularly because I hadn't developed any of my melodic percussion at that point. I was like, I don't know if I can pass theory, I don't know if I haven't developed my ear. I was super nervous about that. So I went to a small school in Missouri called Missouri Western for 2 years. And it was a great experience. It was a really great community of really strong percussionists there, but it was just small and it was kind of in a rural area.
Yeah.
The second year I was there, we had a gentleman come in that the main director took a sabbatical, and then we had another guy come in and take over the sabbatical. And my first instructor, his name is Dennis Rogers, amazing man. Really great human, good drum set player, a good motivator.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from him, and I took a lot from that. And then when Bob Meunier, this gentleman, came in, who's now the director of bands at Drake University in Iowa, there was just something about the way he motivated all of us when
Sure.
he came in, and really motivated us to invest in, quality practice time. And I hadn't played a lot of keyboards at that point, and so he just fired me up about keyboards,
Yeah.
And he was always at school practicing. He'd practice till like 2 a.m. So there was just like this culture that he started creating about, just investing and practicing. And so then I became obsessed with keyboards. I kind of do that. I kind of like go after something, and I'm like, I'm obsessed with that one thing, And so he really, in that 1 year, really changed my whole life trajectory, to be honest. We have those people that do that for us.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're doing that for your kids, here in this program.
Sure. Trying to.
And we got to the end of that first year, and he's like, I think you could go somewhere, I think you could have your choice of where you want to go if you really want to pursue. And he said, you have any interest in being anywhere else? And I said, well, I've always wanted to go to North Texas.
Wow.
And he's like, I think you could. Let's make it happen. Let's put a tape together. You had to put a cassette or a VHS audition tape. And so he helped me with that. And I got in, and kind of the rest is history on that, and then we could pick that up after Lalo talks about his journey. But trying to think if I left anything out in that. Not really.
No.
I think
it's great. I was just going to say I did get a chance to rehearse at Blue Springs one time because I started hearing about them more and more and more as I advanced through college. And then one time at Cadets we got to go there, and I was just like, I could tell this place is special.
Yeah.
Just from going down on the field, it's kind of in that bowl and all the just the way the stadium is. I was like, I can tell good band happens here.
Yeah.
So that's really when I read that in your bio, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense that you went there.
Yeah. I mean, the director that's there now that's really elevated the program.
Yeah.
He wasn't there when I was there, but we it was enough. It was a good enough program that I was very fulfilled with that, and I learned a lot. I had a lot of good. Cliff Walker he graduated about 3 years after he's a little younger than I am, but we had some lineage in that percussion. Actually,
Sure.
There was always about every 3 years there was somebody that came through that kind of stayed with it and made a living and became fairly known in the activity. So it provided some of that culture. And I would just say my basketball coach at Blue Springs, I'm actually going to have lunch with him next week when I'm going to go judge the Blue Springs show. And I keep track. Cue Lalo. Cue Lalo.
He did that on purpose. He's like, wrap it up.
But I have to give props to this man because I feel like, honestly, in terms of, particularly when I was doing competitive high school, I taught from a philosophy standpoint. I feel like the way he coached us, you know, and I would say between all the influence I've had in music and some of the phenomenal teachers I've had in music, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback from them and a lot of little nuggets that I use in my teaching. But he was a master at like psychology and work ethic and standards, and it wasn't necessarily the score at the end of the game. It was like, did you play to your fullest potential, and were you smart, and were you, like, all the mindset things. And every time I have an opportunity to meet with he and his wife, and we've kept in touch over all these years. I mean, through our conversation, when I leave that conversation, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I learned so much, And I was like, that's why I've always just admired him, and so I feel like he shows up a lot in my teaching.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that, but we'll give Lalo a chance here. But I think basketball coaches in particular is one that we come back to a lot with our students. Is the Coach K's of the world, the Phil Jacksons of the world, the John Woodens of the world, like all of those, the Pat Rileys of the world. Like there's so much that we can bridge that gap from. Especially, just particularly not even just sports in general, but like basketball, the sport of basketball to percussion. I think that's super interesting. So we'll give Lalo a chance to give us his life story here. Let's tell us about your beginnings, sir.
Well, I started in 1970. Seriously, 7th grade. I know it makes me sound like I'm 90, but I look good for 90. In junior high band down in Corpus Christi, Texas, which is where I'm from. And Texas, you don't just learn snare drum; you have to learn everything. Even way back then, it was a thing.
Yeah.
And luckily, my junior high band director was a fantastic director, but he was also a percussionist.
Yeah.
So he stressed the importance of learning all of the rudiments, all of the scales, and timpani and so forth, mallet and timpani. So much so that once a month we had to tear the instruments apart and put them back together, and he would do the white glove test and so forth. And we had a test.
Wow.
We had a test every Thursday, and it was a thing. So I fell in love with it like everybody else. Kept it up. It wasn't until I was in the 8th grade that I knew I wanted to be a band director.
Nice.
And but shout out to all the middle school band directors that are listening, because that's where it all starts, and I owe a huge success. My success is because of them. And to the high school people, but it starts in middle school.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so my middle school band director, when he would, actually it was the 9th grade, when they would leave to go like to TMEA or whatever, they let me conduct the band. So when the substitute teacher would come in, they'd go, well, who's Lalo? And I'd raise my hand. He goes, well, I guess you're going to conduct these next year, this particular class. And it was really cool.
That's awesome.
I had a blast, and the students were really cool. They would listen. I didn't know what I was doing. for the most part, other than conducting, and I knew the pattern, and I knew the rhythms and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
But as Texas is very competitive, and I became very competitive myself, they had a big thing called the All-City Band.
Yeah.
And so you competed against all the other high schools in Texas. Then I went on, same thing in the 8th and 9th grade year. We didn't do, the middle schools did not do region and district and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It wasn't until I got to high school. Anyway, so I did all of that. And then most people don't know this about me, but I taught public school for 4 years. So I did in Portland, Texas, which is, if you know where Corpus Christi is, Portland's right on the other side of the bridge. And I taught high school and middle school for 4 years, and those were the best years of my life.
Nice.
In addition to doing all that, I'm talking about my younger years. Anyways, it's my turn.
In that decade.
It's my turn.
Of that generation.
Those were the best 4 years of
Generation.
those were the best 4 years of
Decade.
those 4 years
Decade.
of your life.
Of that decade. But anyways, I was blessed studying with a gentleman by the name of Doyle Horton, great teacher, and that was at Del Mar College, which was a junior college, and you did 2 years there, and then 2 years at Corpus Christi State University, which is now Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Right.
So my last semester there, I got to study with Dr. Norm Weinberg, and we became like super fantastic, and still are great friends. Thank you for everything, Norm. And during that time, I also performed in the Corpus Christi Symphony for many years. So I was doing a whole lot of stuff. I was playing in a I guess what they call these days a wedding band, a cover band, and so forth and so on. But I knew I wanted to play more. I mean, I enjoyed the teaching, but I wanted to play more. And I went to a concert, Christopher Cross concert, and I saw the percussionist playing. There was a drummer and a percussionist. And I said, I can do that. Totally do that.
Yeah.
So afterwards, I actually talked to them, and they said, well, then you need to leave South Texas.
Right.
And I already knew of North Texas. Back then it was called North Texas State. But I couldn't afford to go there, so I went to my hometown universities. And I lived at home, so that helped. And so I taught for 4 years, and I said, I've saved up enough. I'm going to go to the University of North Texas. And just the cliff notes, I get there. I'm there for a year. The following year, I get a TA with the drum line.
Yeah.
And so I taught the drum line there from 84 to 86.
Yeah.
84, 85, 86, 3 years. And it was the first 3 years that we won at PASIC, so that was really exciting.
Yeah.
And then my last year, and then during that time too, I also spent 2 years with Phantom Regiment, and then a short little stint with Skywriters, which I hear they're possibly coming
making
back.
a comeback. Yeah, well, we were at the DCI Mesquite show. I brought this up with Dr. West. I think it's either Spirit or one of the other drum corps was like selling Skywriter shirts at their merch thing.
I
so
think I saw that too.
they maybe kind of worked something out where it's like, hey, sell our merch and it's going to help us. So that's really cool to see that drum corps kind of. And Southwind's back.
Yeah.
Right, and they're doing it. So that's kind of exciting for the activity.
So I've worn a lot of hats, and so my last year at North Texas, I get a call that there's a opening at Middle Tennessee State University, and I said, all right, I'll go, I'll audition. What the heck, I get it, I don't, and I've been there for 36 years now.
Wow.
And I do have to add, I don't know if you remember that, but Doc told you about that opening, right? And
Yeah.
you were like, I'm not ready. I didn't,
No.
didn't have a recital ready, and you had like 4 days to
Wow.
prepare.
Yeah, pretty much.
He did. He had 4 days, so he locked himself in a practice room for like 3.5 days and got on a plane. And the whole time he was like, I don't think I'm going to get this. I'm not ready. And yeah.
And look at you
Here
now.
we are.
And to add to that, Mark Ford was actually the teacher at MTSU.
Oh, wow.
And so he called my teacher, Doc, and said, hey, I'm leaving this place. Do you have somebody there? He goes, well, Lalo's right here. I happened to be in the office when he called, and so he handed me the phone, and I got all the specifics, and they go, yeah, but they kind of want you to come now. And I went, I mean, how do I do that? And she was right. I kind of locked myself and went. And what was really reassuring and super cool was some of the students that were there I had already known through drum corps.
Yeah.
Because they march cavies, and I was teaching Phantom, and they're like right next to each other.
Yeah.
One of which was Eric Johnson, who was one of my students
Yeah.
and we all know his success. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
forth. But anyway, that's how I got started, and that's 36 years, starting my 37th year. I got another 10 years there to go.
She's like, Julie, like,
I'm gonna drink some more water.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on 36 years
Yeah,
and
thank
an
you.
awesome career. And I want to go back to a couple things you said. So the first thing that really struck me was just the fact that your band directors let you get up on the podium. And we talk a lot about just empowering students on this podcast. And I think the thing for us in our jobs, the thing that we are constantly blown away by, and I know we're going to talk a lot about indoor. WGI and all of that is we do a middle school indoor drum line. That's kind of our Jeff Osmore percussion club. We get the high schoolers down and the middle schoolers they're marching and playing, and we do a whole show. And every year I'm just blown away, like, how are they doing this? Like, so empowering students and giving them the chance to do, get on the podium and it's so impactful. So I think that's really cool that you shared that. Let's talk about UNT before we talk about the Nashville stuff and all the other things you guys are going on, because y'all were at UNT every year at UNT, there's so many amazing things going on, but doing this podcast and interviewing so many people, I've realized, like, oh my gosh, there were so many great percussionists, especially like 84 through 86, right? Kenan brought that up on his episode, the 3 straight PASICs in the year, back to back to back. Jeff Osmore, right? Dr. West, all these great percussionists. So what was it about UNT, the culture? What was it like to be a part of that? Describe both of your experiences being a part of that program.
Go ahead.
I'll start first because I'd like to think that I was there in the genesis of all that.
Yeah, sure.
So in 1984, PASIC was held in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Cannon and Dan Wojciechowski, a whole bunch of people, Julie wasn't there yet. And they said, hey, we want to compete at PASIC. And I said, guys, I never marched drum corps. I'm learning from you. You got to know that. I mean, whatever you're playing, I'm writing down, and I listen to VHS, tapes, and I'm fairly good at transcribing cool licks, and then I'll use them and change them around and so forth. Good composers borrow, great composers steal, kind of a thing.
Sure.
So at that time, with the help of Cannon and a gentleman by the name of Mike Colasar and a few other those that had actually marched drum corps, and that particular year there might have been 5 people that marched drum corps. No one else had.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the Lalo show by any stretch. It was the Drumline Collective show, and and it kept that way for at least the 3 years that I was there. It was never a one-person show.
Right.
And so they went out. When I say they, the members of the Drumline would go out and start recruiting people. Hey, we're gonna do this. Matter of fact, the whole entire bass drum line never marched drum corps, and that was a really unique situation. So when we did fundraising and all that kind of stuff. So when we went to Ann Arbor, we were competing against groups like Michigan State University, and I wish I could remember the other schools, but Georgia and so forth. And
Moorhead.
I didn't really know anything about I just knew that Michigan State was really good, and they still are really good. And the whole mentality was, let's just go have a good time.
Yeah.
And consequently, well, we won.
Yeah.
And as you well know, those of you that teach here in Texas, that once you win, it's kind of expected for you to win every single time.
Yeah.
So there was the pressure the next year after that, and then the pressure the next year after that. But because we were winning, the drumline was winning, it was attracting performers and so forth. And so I'm gonna segue now to 1985, which is when Julie showed up.
Take it away, Julie.
Take it away. So I showed up. That's when I transferred. And honestly, I mean, I don't even know how to put into words those years at UNT and how I feel like it just changed my entire trajectory. But when I got there, I actually didn't sign up. I wasn't going to be in drumline. I wasn't going to be in marching band. Once again, I was concerned about passing theory.
Yeah.
And
this
like
theory
just,
thing, you keep coming back to this for you.
Theory and history and all. I just wanted to be a good student.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was going to take a year and not be in the drumline and in the marching band. I knew I needed one more year. But I just kind of, I wanted to just, I didn't know anyone in the state of Texas when I moved there. I was just just all risk, taking,
Right.
jumping the net will appear, right?
Right.
A fun story I will have to say though, so the weekend we moved down, I had to stay in a hotel for 2 days or whatever before we got in the dorms. And I was at a hotel, and it was hot in Texas, and I went to the pool. And at the pool, there were two freshmen. I was coming in as a transfer, but there were two freshman guys there at the pool, and I don't know, we all started talking, and it was Matt Chamberlain and Earl Harvin, which two ridiculously amazing drum set players. Of course, I didn't know that. I mean, they're just freshmen, but
Yeah.
we actually had practice rooms across from each other that year. And it didn't take long to go, okay, these two are pretty special, you know. So that was kind of a neat start, it was like the first two people I met. So then I just kind of immersed myself, tried to get a handle on school, and, I was kind of nervous about being in this big program. The reason I chose North Texas is because I had gone to a lot of Maynard Ferguson concerts when I was in high school.
Wow.
And when Maynard would introduce the band, it was 90% NTSU, North Texas State University,
Right.
and I was like, what is this North Texas State? What does he speak of? Every player, I think Bissonette was playing. It was just an amazing group, and I was like, that's where I want to go. So
That's awesome.
I wanted to be successful there. So first it was maybe 3 weeks of school. I wasn't in the marching band. I wasn't in the drum line. And I think it was the third week of school, Doc Shatroma found me in the hallway. And, back in that day, Doc was pretty intimidating.
Sure.
I'm sure you guys have heard, some of the stories. And
Lore.
yeah, and particularly being new, and then just that personality, a little bit of just always being super intense. He came up to me and he said, "Hey, we have a opening in the front ensemble. We want you. Would you consider doing that?" I don't even know. I don't think he probably said, "Would you consider?" I think he was like,
Do it. Yeah, you got to do this.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah.
He goes, "We'd like you to fill that spot," or something. I don't remember. But he was just talking to me in the hallway, and I would always get nervous around him at first, because I was like, oh my gosh, because there was 160 percussionists there or something at the time.
Crazy.
So, and I said, of course you tell Doc, okay.
Yeah.
I said, yes, sir, okay. And he goes, okay, you need to find Lalo Davila. And I was like, I didn't quite hear what he said, and it was like, ba-da-ba-da-ba. And I was like, I was too nervous to ask to repeat that. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll find ba-ba-da-ba-da. I don't know who I'm looking for, right? And so then a week, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, he sees me in the hall. He's like, hey, have you talked to Lalo yet? But I wasn't understanding what he was saying. I said, no, I haven't connected with him yet. I didn't even know who he was. So I was like, I don't know who he's talking about. I can't understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so maybe later that day, I walk into his office, and I was signing up for something on the table. And I signed my name, and Lalo's in there, and he kind of looks over, and he goes, oh, my maiden name was Sutton. He goes, oh, you're Julie Sutton. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm Lalo Davila. And I went,
Found him.
that's who I've been looking for. It all connected. I was like, so then, through that conversation, I don't know, a couple days later, I ended up at my first drumline rehearsal. And, there's Ken and Wiley and our friend Mike Colsart, just so many great people, Sean Shatroma. And, right away, I was like, these are kind of my people,
Aw.
and it was great. And they were all super driven. I mean, the thing about that crew was, just work ethic, you know. And there was a lot of undergraduates in there that were doing really great work, and almost I would consider at that graduate level, you know. But then you had all the grad students who were like John Wooten, Gary France, Lalo, Bob Ledbetter, J.B. Smith, my first semester there, he was at Arizona State forever.
Oh, wow.
He was my first keyboard teacher there. And, it was just it was something special. And I do think, I think there's been every decade there at North Texas, there has been those, those special graduates and special people that come through there. We always like to think we were there at just a really special time.
Sure.
But I think everybody feels that way. Even 5 or 6 years later, it's interesting because we saw Robert Anderson the other day, and somebody said, well, were you guys in school together? And we weren't in school together, but we were close enough. There was like this sort of like 2 or 3 years before, you know, you got there, and 4 or 5, 6 years after that, you kind of still kind of learned to, you know, you met these people,
Right.
and you kind of felt like that you knew each other.
Sure.
In fact, like Chris Crockrell, who owns Row-Loff, co-owner of Row-Loff, met Lalo in like 84,
83.
83. So he was at North Texas. And then he left North Texas to go play drums with the Ice Capades, right? And so Lalo met him. And then when we moved to Nashville and Chris was there, he's like, hey, there's this guy I went to school that went to North Texas and left the year you came in, or the year before you came in. And he was playing for Louise Mandrell in Nashville, so we went to a Louise Mandrell show just to see him play. And so there was like, I wasn't there when Chris was there, but
Yeah.
it's like you just had all these like kind of like experiences and overlapping moments.
Yeah.
And so not only were you close to your class of undergraduates and graduates, you kind of were influenced by the before and the after.
Sure.
You know, it's
Yeah.
pretty special.
So anything on the 86 year? Because we covered 84 and 85. And then you guys met, obviously.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't start dating right away, but when did that progress and turn into that?
It was, I was walking down the hall.
Can't wait to see what he says.
and I was walking down the hall, and she goes, "No, I'm just kidding." No, and I've told this story to our daughters too. You know, we were friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Way before we go. Yeah, I guess we're kind of boyfriend girlfriend.
Yeah.
Everybody else
We
thinks
just
we
hung
are.
out. Yeah, we just hung out a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I first started in the drum line, I guess I had a car there, but I didn't know anybody at that time. And, you know, if there was like social get-togethers and gatherings at the that the drum line was having,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't know like whose house I was going to or how to get there or whatever. So, you know, he would offer to give me a ride. And so we just,
Well, most of the parties were at my house.
yeah,
anyway.
so that kind of worked out. Anyway, we're just really good friends, and yeah, I don't even remember it. I mean, it really wasn't too long in '85 before we kind of were starting to date. I would
Yeah.
say about a couple months in that we were like, okay, this is more a friendship.
I look at the years. You said we talked about 84 and 85. 84 was PASIC in Ann Arbor, Michigan. 85 was in Anaheim, California, and then 86 was in DC.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at it.
You remember
Just
the years.
relates. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And
'87 was in St. Louis because I was still there in
she was still there.
'87.
I had already left for MTSU Nashville in '87. She was finishing up her last year, which her last year ended up marching with Brian West and Paul Rennick, I think, was in the drum line as
No,
well.
Paul wasn't, but I did. So '85, it was my first year, and I took that marimba spot. I think I played some Xylo marimba. We were kind of still moving around. You know how like
Yeah.
everybody switches up. And then, so I did that in '85. '86, I was a co-front ensemble section leader. I think it was Steve McDonald and I, maybe. And then '87, I was in the snare line. And that was, Kennan was in that. Brian West was in that snare line. Sean Shatroma. It was crazy. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Well, she
It was a lot of
left
fun.
out the part where she also marched Phantom Regiment, unless you covered it already.
No, that would have been the summer of '87, I guess, because the one thing I did, I filled a marimba spot. I wasn't going to march Phantom. I always wanted to march drum corps, but I didn't have the money, and I was already like on my age out year, and so
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know, I'm just gonna stay here and get some more school in. And then a marimba spot opened up again, and so I had skipped all the camps because that marimba spot came up late, and I just decided, all right, this is my chance. I mean,
Right.
I want this experience, so I took that spot. But during that summer, Kennan was in the snare line. I'm trying to think. There's
John
a
Wooten?
bunch. No, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't. He was starting to teach and do things like that. But
Gotcha.
there's a bunch of North Texas. It was like pretty much the North Texas thing in the Phantom Regiment, right? And so I spent that summer just drumming with all the snare drummers. I was like any on the bus, any free time, I was like, hey, can we pad it up and drum? And Joe Winslow, whose father was Dr. Winslow, director of the wind ensemble at North Texas at the time, he was a really good snare drummer too, and he was always, willing to drum with me, and he was always like, hitting the back of my stick to get the turn, like it's turn out more, like let's go get that back, and we're doing all those old school stuff like 3 camps and all kinds of cool stuff. But that summer was really important for me because I had a great experience in the keyboard section. I actually marched top bass in a couple parades. We had a bass drummer who was still in high school, and their high school got out so much later, right? So they put me on top bass for parades, and I had a blast. I was like, oh man, I kind of like this. Is he coming back? Yeah. And then I was in the marimba keyboard individuals, and then I was just drumming all the time. So it was like such an important summer, just kind of immersion in all those things. Yeah. And then it was a lot of fun. Just a lot of great experiences.
Cool. Well, thank y'all for sharing your origin stories and your time at UNT, and we're going to move now into your time in Nashville and all the exciting things that came there. So pause this real quick. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for sharing your origin stories, and we got into the North Texas stuff, which is super interesting. Really tied a lot of things together. If those people who've been listening to this podcast have been kind of hearing names, like the Ken and Wileys and the Greg Bissonets and all these great people that you guys just really nicely tied in those years for us. So I really appreciate you guys kind of bringing that all together for our listeners. Lalo, you mentioned you had moved up to Tennessee. You had won the MTSU job that you didn't think you were going to get, so congratulations on that. And then shortly after that, Julie, you joined him. You couldn't bear to be away from Lalo any longer, so you guys made a home in the Nashville metro area, Murfreesboro. That's a hard word to say, by the way. Murfreesboro. There's a drum corps show there every year, so everyone should know how to say it. So talk about what that was like and what both of you guys were doing at that point.
Well, I should have said this earlier too. When I was a band director, we took the high school band to Opryland to go, but it's not there anymore. Yeah. But to go perform and also partake in the park, and we also took a tour of some of the studios. And I'm listening to the people talk there, and I'm going, I would never live in Nashville. Yeah. And they say never say never. So right. Wow. And moved there in the fall of '87, and loved it. Wow. At first. Yeah. She goes at first. At first. And then anyway, I could go on the good and the bad, but all in all, I got there. I got to tell this story because this is really cool. So, previous to me getting this gig, there were several of us, Julie, myself, and quite a few others there, including Ken. His name keeps coming up because we played in a lot of things together. Sure. We played in a professional band called the Panhandlers.
Oh, nice.
And while we were at North Texas, I think it was the spring of '87, we got a phone call that said, hey, we want you guys to audition for this restaurant/club in Dallas. Well, long and short of it, we got the gig, and man, we were playing all over the place. I mean, sometimes 3 times a day.
Saturday.
Wow.
And I no longer had to play in a country band. We were making more money playing in the steel drum band and so forth. We ended up buying our own pans and so forth. Nice. Well, I somehow was sort of the MC of the band as well. Well, I sang.
I can't picture you in that role.
I can't either. But
he was fronting the band.
So I was fronting the
and
band,
singing.
And then I get this gig, and then so I wasn't playing in that band anymore. Now I'm living in Tennessee, and the manager, the owner, goes, "Hey, where's that guy that messes with the audience?" And Dr. Shatroma was the manager of the band. Basically, he says, "Well, he got another job," and he goes, "Well, we got to have him here." And so he said, "Well, you want him, you got to fly him." Oh, wow. So they flew me 13 weekends from Nashville.
At least.
Every Friday.
That's Jeff Osmore miles.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Wheels up.
Wheels up.
And I collected enough frequent flyer miles. They got first class tickets for our honeymoon and stuff. So that was that was really cool. But yeah, I got there, and you know, a lot of my reason I got the job, besides auditioning for it, was partly due to some of my accolades of in the they needed somebody to be really good with the marching program and so forth. So I started there in '87. Fast forward a year later, and Julie moves up. You can talk about that.
Yeah, so I will just add a little bit about the Panhandlers too. It's like, I think we went a couple weekends without Lalo, but nobody had the personality, right? So when Lalo was fronting the band and singing, you know, the dance floor was full, and it was full. The restaurant was full to the end of the night. You know, we had to shut it down, and there'd still be people wanting us to play, right? It's just the energy that he has. And then I think we went like 2 weekends without him, and it was like not the same energy, and the restaurant owner was like, oh, we got to get that guy back, you know? So that worked out amazing for us, because at that point I still had another year of school, and so it was great. I'd leave class on Friday and swing by DFW and pick him up, and they'd go down to Bahama Bob's was the name of the place. But I think one of the things I would just say in terms of, to wrap up the North Texas experience before I talk about my journey in Nashville, I'm just so grateful for the diversity and all the experiences that I had there and that we had together, and what Doc built, that program that he built. For me, I feel like and I tell my students now, but everything I'm doing now in particular, I think is a direct result of the opportunities that I had there, and the development of, snare drum, keyboard, world percussion. There's just the diversity and all the different people we got to study with. I mean, there's people in and out all the time. Took lessons with Lee Howard Stevens and Julie Spencer, and it was a pretty amazing, experience, and just really grateful, because I think even as an adjudicator now, being able to speak to specificity in like battery percussion land and keyboard land, and then if there's a show where there's world percussion involved, I'm just really grateful for that, all the training and all the experiences that I was privileged to be a part of. When I moved to Nashville, I graduated in December, so I moved in January. So there was no, you can't really get a job, in January in education. So I started to try to just get involved in the area and meet band directors. It was a little tricky. I didn't love it at first. I was like, I'm giving this 5 years. Let's look for something else. Sure. Yeah. It was just some mindset things in the area, and it was a little bit of a hard nut to crack.
Yeah.
So,
but you look at the Nashville area now, and like there's just, oh my gosh, like Music City Mystique and Music City Drum Corps and all these other great high schools that have come out of that. So it's obvious that you guys got in there when it was at the origin of it. Sounds like.
I was really grateful, because I feel like I really wanted to stay in Dallas and teach. I student taught at Martin High School in Arlington, and Jim McDaniel was the head director there. He ended up being fine arts directors everywhere. Had a great experience. He's like, hey, I want you to stay. I'd like, we got to find a job for you here. But then he met Lalo, and he's like, I get it, Yeah. But then, I was like, oh, I had it. I was ready to go in Dallas, But I'm very grateful, because I do think, so when I got to Nashville, and my first job, like actual paying job, was I took a maternity leave job for somebody that was teaching general music for a semester. Nice. I never thought I would do general music. So I was like, wow, okay. So I did that, and I was still I was teaching at a couple small schools, drumline things, and then I was at another school. And a friend of mine said, hey, John Overton, which was one of the bigger band programs in Nashville. There was like John Overton and McGavick, two really big programs. Like they're not really happy with their drumline person, and they asked if you would come out to rehearsal. So I went out to rehearsal, and interestingly, they didn't really tell the drumline guy I was coming out. So that was a little weird, navigating. Yeah. This guy's like, why are you here? Yeah. And then he was like, are you here for the front ensemble? And I was like, yeah. I mean, everything,
Yeah.
And it was interesting. He kind of challenged me. He was like, oh, could you play flam drags? So I had to play flam drags. I had it was ridiculous.
Did you do an audition?
Right. So anyway, at the end of that night, I ended up like in that rehearsal, there was a snare drummer, and I said, can I grab this snare drummer? I looked up to the directors. I said, can I grab him real quick and help him with something? They're like, yeah. So I like grab his drum, and we're like going into the end zone. We're like running, you know, comes to find out that was the son of the band director, and I didn't know it.
Oh,
you know?
no.
They loved it though. They were like,
Oh,
oh,
nice.
this is amazing. And so at the end of the night, they're like, okay, we want you for next year, you know. Or actually, I think I ended up coming in. I came in right then. Yeah, they ended up firing the other guy, and they're like, when can you start or something? And then we negotiated some things for the following year, and I was at John Overton for 10 years at that point. During that time, I taught middle school band for 3 years. So I did that maternity leave. I started at Overton, and then I was teaching a middle school band in Nashville, and I really enjoyed that. The only reason I really left doing that is because we started a family. So
Right.
we decided when we had our first daughter, Danielle, that I wanted to take a year off from teaching, and we just hadn't figured things out. Like, what are we going to do? We didn't really want to use daycare, and so in Nashville, you could take a year off and still have your job back the following year.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was like, we're going to step back, take this year off, try to figure this stuff out. And I had a band parent. It was the mother of, I don't know if you guys know this guy, Tim Maynard. So Tim marched cadets and ended up teaching. He's a fantastic snare. He's probably one of the better snare techs there ever have been. But he taught with McIntosh at Cavaliers. He taught with Phantom, I think, when Renick was there, and some Blue Coats. I mean, he kind of flies under the radar because he's super kind of soft-spoken, but
Sure.
he's an amazing player and a really great teacher. But he was one of my high school students, and his mom called me and said, hey, I don't know what you're going to do for childcare, but I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've got Tim had a younger sister. She's like, I'm staying home with Diane. I'd be happy to. I want you to be able to work with. I don't want you to stop working with the Overton program.
Yeah.
So, you know, no pressure, but if you'd like, I'll take care of Danielle. And so that's where we kind of found a good balance with that. And so
Yeah.
we just decided I'm not going back to band directing. At that time, Row-Loff was starting.
Yep.
And those guys were coming to us to write because they were trying to build their library. So we were writing for Row-Loff. And things just picked up more in the, you know, just to be in percussion. And I think that worked out really well for me just because I could balance the being a mom, still doing what I absolutely love, the dream job.
Right.
Right? Totally a dream
That's
job.
what it's all about.
And so that's kind of takes me up to a certain point in Nashville. It's kind of how I got started in the area. And the band directors at much like you guys have here, the band director, Joanne Hood at Overton, just really allowed me. So the thing there was no indoor drumline in the Nashville area when I got there. And you guys might appreciate this story. So she allowed me to just build the program how I saw it, right? So the first year I just got in there, they couldn't read. None of those kids could read. So the first year was like, we got to get everybody, like they need to be able to get the decoder ring out and do their own work, you know, figure out. So we really focused on reading. And then I mentioned that I wanted to do this kind of an indoor thing to help on the concert season to keep them playing and developing their skills. So she allowed me to do that. So in '91, we put an indoor show together, and we were doing exhibition at guard shows. So there's no indoor drumline in the Nashville area. And we'd put this show together, and then we'd do the exhibition at the guard show right before they'd give awards, you know. And I convinced Joanne to allow me to bring the drum line to Dallas.
Wow.
And I was like, was it the Plano?
It
It was the LD Bell.
It was, yes, LD Bell.
It was an LD Bell show.
Wow.
Right?
I'm not-
No, LD Bell had won like 3 years in a row. I can't remember which show it was.
Right.
It was an outdoor drumline show, kind of like what you guys did today.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Oh,
Joanne.
yeah, I forgot that was today.
Yeah, like just a couple hours ago.
We're crazy. Anything for the dream job.
Right, exactly. So I said, I just really want these kids, I want to expose these kids to, you know, just that next level. Like they haven't seen that next level of percussion. And Dallas is where it's happening, you know. And so she's like, yeah, I support that. And we were the only drumline that was not from Texas. We stayed at, Marcus hosted us. I think we stayed at a hotel, but Marcus allowed us to practice there. And I was, we're putting this drumline show together, and I had no barometer to be like, is this good, or are we going to be embarrassed? Is this, like, and I brought in a couple people. Jim Campbell came in and worked with the group, and I was just like, he's like, it's pretty good. And I was like, okay, are you sure? And at that point, I think LD Bell had won like 4 or 5 years in a row, right? They were unstoppable. So we go into Marcus, and we're rehearsing there, and there's posters, I can't remember the name of the competition about, go Marcus, those posters. And it's like, beat Bell, beat LD Bell, and everybody's hyping. Everybody wanted to beat LD Bell, right?
Yeah.
So we get there, we rehearse, we go to the show, and it starts raining, so they move the show indoors.
Oh, wow.
And so we perform, and then I think it stopped raining. We go back outside for just awards. I think the LD Bell, or who was the exhibition group? McIntosh and Rick Rodriguez were. It must have been North Texas, maybe.
I don't remember.
There was like an exhibition drumline, and McIntosh and Rick were in it, so it must have been North Texas.
Yeah.
And then they start announcing awards, and they're like, 8th place, blah blah blah, 7th place. They're not announcing us yet. I'm like, cool, we're not last,
Yeah, right.
Good. And
always
the
a good
kids
feeling.
were so fired up. Sean Chitroma was teaching at Plano. They were great. LD Bell was great. Marcus was great. So they got to see a lot of great drumlines. And then it was like 4th, we're not announced. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We're going to be top 3. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was like 3rd place. I think I don't remember if it went Bell or Marcus, but it was like 3rd, 2nd. And we won that competition.
Oh my gosh.
It was, it was crazy. We just were shocked. We're like, what?
We talk about going a long way for an L, like if you go far away, you know, sometimes when you're playing football.
Yeah.
But that's a long way for a W.
Right.
That's
totally.
good.
And we had no idea. It was so unexpected.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like Doc was there. And, he was like, I knew right after you performed, you guys were going to win. It was just super musical. And, he was just really complimentary. And I was like, it just meant so much. And so those kids, my Overton kids, that they fired them up.
Yeah, I bet.
And then that's when we kind of started doing some WGI stuff. And then I hosted the first indoor drumline competition in Nashville. And I think we had 3 lines. And I stretched the day, it was like,
right.
So I built in clinics that become kind of like a day of percussion, and it was like a performance and then like 3 clinics and then like a performance. I don't remember if we scored it was an exhibition, whatever. And then we started, the next year we had 8, and the next year we had 12. And then, Father Ryan kind of started up, if you know that school.
Yep.
And then Music City, probably the first couple years of Music City I was feeding them,
Right.
It was a good 70% of Overton kids going in. So yeah, it was cool. It was a great place to, I wouldn't have had those same opportunities in Dallas to kind of start things, and hopefully in a roundabout way impact an area that hadn't been impacted yet, really in that regard. So.
Well, I think real quick before Lalo talks, like, you came back a couple times to your head director and just how much they were just like, yeah, sure. Yeah, just do it. I mean, look at the legacy that they allowed you to build this like culture of indoor in this area, and you went on to impact the indoor activity in such a huge way. And part of that was your head director. And we're really
100%.
blessed with our really great head director, Cody Newman at Forney.
Absolutely.
And just for them to just continually say, oh yeah, go do it.
Go
yeah,
for it.
go for it.
Yeah.
And like that's just so important. So head directors, band directors listening, say yes to your percussion directors. When you get a good feeling about it.
Yeah.
Maybe not all the time, but
Well, the
obviously
thing
it worked
about
out in your
Joanne,
case.
what was cool is that I was like, she ran that building a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'd go in and she's like,
The best
Jul-
ones do.
She's like, hey, I got you got the small gym tonight. And I was like, I thought the JV had the small gym. And she was like, yeah, well, they don't. You have the small gym. And I was like, wow, that's some power at the basketball team,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will say the guard at Overton was really well supported too. In fact, they won WGI in 95, we won in 96. They may have won a second year. They were medaling pretty consistently. We were medaling. So she was supporting the guard in the drum line. And
That's amazing.
I think it was the rising tide, raises all boats. What's that quote? Yeah.
We have a lot of half cliches on here. Don't worry. We are
Yeah.
always like, "What's
What's
that
that?
cliche?" We kind of
Rising tide.
High tide
Lifts all
rises
boats.
all boats.
Lifts
lifts
all
all
boats.
boats.
Yeah.
There you go. We always
Something
come
like
to it at some point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just takes a little while. Well, that's awesome. We'll definitely come back to WGI. But Lalo, all the while, what are you up to? You're sitting on the couch while she's creating these awesome drum lines, or what are you doing? Working on your castanet technique, or?
No, I think I was talking to somebody earlier today about that sort of thing. They were talking about at some point they want to raise kids, but they don't know if they can do that and be a percussion band director specialist. And then I said, well, it can be done, 100%. So, but we always had a rule that the girls are never by themselves. And so if she would have an indoor competition and it was in town, well, we would go, right? Support. But if it was out of town and we couldn't go, well, somebody was always, it was either myself and if there wasn't an indoor show and I had a clinic or a performance, then she would be. Those girls were never by themselves. If we went to PASIC, for example, then my in-laws would come into town because we both want to go to PASIC.
That's the only thing we ever did together, really, for years. Because the rule was we don't double book.
Yeah.
That was kind of the rule with the girls.
You
for
both
a long
wanted to be
time.
in their lives and
Yeah,
be present.
one of us is going to be, We did have some times. I mean, we had
Sure.
like 3 really, really good babysitters. And there were a couple weekends here and there. But I would say the majority of the time, our rule was we don't double book.
That's awesome. You figured that out early,
Yeah.
and that allowed you guys to have
Yeah.
to have great careers, but still raise 2 daughters.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I was doing when she was doing that. But also, I was blessed with being a part of the very first salsa band in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
When I left North Texas, I mean, my passion was drum set. I like everybody else's, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
We can play all the other instruments, but everybody loves to play the drum set. But it didn't work out in Nashville too much because there are a million people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sat in at a club, the Santana cover band. Well, they weren't a cover band. They were playing some Santana tunes along with their own original material. And they asked me to sit in, and I played timbales. Now, that's not my special, that's not what I went to college to go do. I played it in high school and never touched it again
Yeah.
till basically I moved to Nashville. And when I played that one song, there was a bass player in the audience, Cuban bass player, Cuban American, and says, "Hey, you want to start a salsa band?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "Bring some charts, whatever you have, and then I'll bring some charts, and the other members of the band, they're going to bring some charts, and we're going to rehearse all day. I got us a gig at this killer nightclub, but we're just going to rehearse this one day." And these are all great readers. Jeff Coffin, who now plays with Dave Matthews
Oh,
band.
wow.
So he was one of the members, and with the trombone player later ended up playing with Prince, and all these guys, they're amazing,
Wow.
amazing players. So we get there, we rehearse the band and whatnot. These are really cool. All I did was I took some of the steel band panhandler tunes and put horns to it and just changed a few things, but there were still some of the same songs.
Yeah.
And it worked just fine. And there was a mile-long line. People would come see us play.
Oh, wow.
And it's just extreme, instant popularity.
Yeah.
So we had that going on while she was doing that, sort of thing. But again, priority was the kids were never alone. And I also had some side projects that just fell in my lap.
Sure.
Some voiceover stuff, some Spanish, English hymns for the American Bible Society.
Oh, wow.
So they would call me in and say, "Hey, we're doing a Spanish-English thing. We want you to sing, but we need for you to make sure that all the non-Hispanic people are enunciating correctly."
Sure.
And that led to other people knowing that I could do that, and led to more voiceover stuff, and then kind of segued into our daughters getting into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's-
The biz, as they call it.
That's
Right.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, and then we had a steel band going too. There at not at MTSU, but she had her pans, I had my pans, and we formed another band with the people there. And there wasn't a steel band at the time, so we were the go-to steel band. there, because that's when live music was really thriving.
Sure.
And there were places to play and people willing to pay, and things have changed since then. But we're constant. We're both like wicked busy all the time. And,
Oh, yeah.
and,
Right.
and we love it.
Yeah.
What are some of your more famous voiceover gigs or taglines or
Can we get it?
projects?
Can we get a Jafar?
Oh.
Do you know about Jafar?
It's in every
Is it
bio.
bio?
It's in every bio. You put it in every one. We got
That's
to
a
get
great
it.
story.
Come on, let's get a Jafar.
I want to tell the story about
Go ahead.
No, you can tell the Jafar story.
Well, the particular Aladdin that I played Jafar in was called. It's from a series called the Disney Junior series. And what they do is I don't know if they still do it or not, but they would take like Little Mermaid
Yeah.
and then make it into a play,
Okay.
we'll
where
adapt it for
they-
middle school and high school.
middle school and high
It's
school.
Gotcha.
Music Theater International is the name of it. It's Disney's MTI.
Okay.
And so my daughters would sing in it, and I wouldn't do the English stuff. I mean, they got guys that could really sing, and so one particular year, Disney wanted to try Disney dual language series,
Huh.
and they were going to start with Jafar.
Aladdin.
No, I'm sorry, Aladdin. Yeah.
Right. That'd be a good spinoff, though,
Yeah.
from Jafar's perspective.
Right.
Disney, if you're listening, which we know you are,
It's
that one's for
gonna pop
free,
up on my.
but the next one's going to cost you.
And so I get this call and say, hey, we're doing this project. Will you be the coach? And by coach, they just meant make sure everybody's enunciating correctly.
Yeah.
Sure. And so they had not an open call, but they were having auditions, and both of my girls auditioned, and they both made it. And my youngest at the time might have been 10 or something, I don't know. And she auditioned for Little Jasmine, and she got the gig. So we get there, and it's a much smaller room than this, and it's a circle of microphones with all the actors or singers in it. And I'm here, and the Disney guy is next to me. He's got a little keyboard. And, okay, here we go. And they start, they start playing the music and whatever. And things are going great. And I say, no, it goes like this. Lalo, what do you think? Yeah, you need to roll the R here and blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of like my role. Well, there was a gentleman who was Jafar, who was playing the role of Jafar. And in my opinion, I thought he was doing okay, but not good enough for the Disney
Not Mickey
people.
Mouse.
And even Marissa and both Marissa and Danielle go, why aren't you singing? And I said, because they didn't ask me to.
Yeah.
So the guy's doing it, and so the director is telling the guy, giving directions, says, you need to think of Jafar as being very pompous with the red velvet and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Lalo, can you help him? And so I looked at the libretto and I go, the text, and I go, try this. A mí no me importa porque te estás andando por ahí, something like that. I don't remember the text. And so now try it. And so the guy tried it and go and pum, 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 pum. And they put music, and he tried it, and oh, let's try that again. Lalo, can you help? And so anyway, after 2 tries,
Yeah.
the Disney guy goes, all right, let's move on. We'll come back to that later. So now 2 hours later, this is the end of the day, and they said, okay, guys, we're done for the day. And I said, no, wait a minute, we got to go back and catch
Yeah.
that line or whatever. And the guy goes, oh, we'll get that later.
Yeah.
And so there's only one exit, so they're all leaving this exit here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for and he was the last one. So here you go, everybody's leaving, and I'm about to leave, and guy grab the Disney guy grabs my shirt. We need to talk. So I go into the mixing room where the console is and stuff.
Mickey Mouse is in there smoking a cigar.
Right.
And he says, oh no.
Oh, no, baby.
Anyways, he says.
Once again, cue Lalo.
Oh,
Yeah.
baby.
Anyways, he says, we want you to be Jafar.
Nice.
And I went, wow. Oh, sure, okay.
Yeah.
And so we go into this quasi green room where everybody's there, and they're giving them the lowdown for the next day. and blah, 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 and Lalo's doing Jafar, and blah, 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 and my daughter's just doing like this, and the guy was still there. I felt so bad.
Oh man, they gave him a broom.
Yeah.
There you go.
So that's how I ended up doing the Jafar voice, and I was also the coach. So
Nice.
I got double pay.
Yeah.
So that was
That was nice.
that was pretty cool. And then I got to do a solo with my youngest daughter.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that was the genesis of your daughters, like the first thing that got them into show business.
They had
that world.
They
a
had
little
done
bit.
some stuff earlier than that.
Yeah.
We did a thing called for Tony the Tiger, English Spanish
Yeah.
thing. I still got all the footage from that. It's pretty
Aw.
cool. Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of how I got, and I think I said this already. We sang a little duet together, and it was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Julie tell
Core memory.
this story because it's a really cool.
Well, I
follow
gotta
through.
make it quick because I'm sure we need to move on.
Yeah.
But what a really funny story with that. So both the girls had a lot of opportunities to sing on some of those MTI projects because all those projects were being recorded in Nashville, which was such a blessing for,
Right.
to give them that experience. So in this particular project, they also wanted Marissa to audition for Iago, that little
The bird.
bird.
Yeah.
And that was Iago was all Spanish. And she's not fluent, right? And so she's like, well, I'll give it a shot. And so she went home. They were going to audition her the next day. They wanted to hear it. So here's Lalo and Marissa at the table. And he's coaching her. And he's like, yeah, great. And she says it back. Oh, that's great. That's amazing. They work for a couple hours. She goes to bed. And he comes. We're getting ready to go to bed. And he comes in the room. And he's like, shit, there's no way. And I was like, what? You were saying amazing. He's like, yeah, it's not convincing, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's thinking she's not going to get this, right? She can't do it. So we go in the next day, and she does a little audition, and they accept her, and they're like, yeah, you're going to be Iago. It wasn't a big part. Well, it was singing, but some of the Spanish wasn't a lot, but so she could get through it with his help. So in the duet, they do the first couple takes with Marissa, and she nails like the first 3 takes, like one and done,
Wow.
Okay, Lalo, your turn. Lalo goes into the booth, It was like the first thing took 4 reps, 4 times, and I was in the booth going, who's got the problem with the, so
Yeah,
he
right.
came in the night before, I was like, man, she's not going to get it. And I'm like, all right, mister, she just
Hey,
nailed like.
mother knows best.
Yeah.
Mother knows best.
It's pretty
Right.
funny. I kind of rubbed it in a little bit. I was like,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
she was one and done, and it took you 4 times, It's pretty funny.
Yeah. A lot of interesting things going on for both of y'all in your time at Nashville over the course of the first 10 or so years that y'all were both there. You're still teaching high school.
Yeah.
You're getting the MTSU thing going and gigging and doing this voice actor stuff, and that's just really cool. And I got to visit Nashville for the first time a couple summers ago, and I was only there for like a day and a half, and I just really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the city, and definitely want to go back and see more of the Opry, obviously, all the country music stuff that happens there, but all the I think it's known for country music, but obviously, as evidenced by both of y'all, there's so much more to the city from a musical perspective. So if you're looking for a place to travel over the next few months, recommend Nashville.
Yeah, if you are, when visiting Nashville, you have a place to stay. We have Holiday Inn, Marriott, Motel 6.
That's great. That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. I could ask you to do like 3 more impressions, and that would just keep me entertained. But we probably should move on to the next
let's
thing.
move on.
So we'll pause it and hop on another project. Great. Well, is there anything else we wanted to cover? Your high school years. There were more high schools that you taught at, right, before you made the move to MTSU?
Yeah, I spent about 10 years at Overton, and then when we wanted to kind of get our kids in some better schools, they were in some of the Nashville schools, and we just felt like, as parents do, and so we decided to move to Murfreesboro as well, and that cut down, like his commute wasn't as big, and so it just gave some more family time too. But I didn't really want to commute back into Nashville and go back to Overton, so I started fresh at a new school, Oakland High School in Murfreesboro, and I mean, ground level,
Yeah.
and I think I was there 1 year, and then the second year I wanted to take them to WGI again, kind of just to expose them. We had no hopes, we didn't really think we would do very well. We actually ended up doing a little better than we thought. I mean, our budget was like $200 a kid, you know, and we went to WG. I really just wanted to expose them, and we were 1 out of finals. We were like 13th, and it was like by a couple tenths. And I was like, oh, I could have found a couple tenths, you know. I mean,
Right, I know, there's always those
there's
couple
always
tenths.
like, oh, you know, I didn't think that we would do that well. But what was fun about that year is we did this like Latin show, and we set up a stage behind the front ensemble, and we had 4 singers. And I'd gone
cool.
to the choir director, and I said, I need 4 singers. I want this to feel like a Latin club. And she goes, oh, I got just 2 guys, 2 girls. She's like, I got I got these kids. And she goes, in fact, this one kid, he's a freshman, and he already has an agent.
Wow.
And she's like, he'll be fantastic. And it turned out that's Chris Young. He's a big country music star now. He's been on the top of the charts and stuff, you know.
Oh my gosh.
And so Lalo came in and taught him how to speak Spanish and do the club thing, the vibe thing. So he started the show and just, and talked Spanish, and then they sang. And that was great. The kids got super fired up, you know, and they definitely came back strong the next year. So the second year we went to WGI, we were in A class, and we came in second.
Nice.
And then we moved up to open the next year, third year, and we medaled with a bronze.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a cool trajectory to see. I remember, like, after the first year coming back from Dayton, I had so many parents at that program go, I don't know what happened in Dayton, but my kid is different,
Yeah.
you know? And so the parents really bought into, and they really supported it. And I had some really cool special parents too. I had like the president of Pearl at the time.
Oh my gosh.
His son was in the drum line, and I just you know, you get those little pockets of really special kids and really special times. It's really fun to like kind of start over and build that program up again. Sure. And then a new school opened, and a couple of those band directors moved to the new school, and I transferred with them, and we weren't aligned in our philosophy, so I didn't stay very long there. And then that's when, the position at MTSU opened up. Andy Smith was there, who's at UTEP, and he was a graduate student of Lalo's, and then after he got his master's degree, he stayed on and taught adjunct, and he was in charge of the drum line. And when he decided to go to IU to work on his doctorate, that position came open for the drum line, and the band director, Craig Cornish, who was there at MTSU, still my boss at MTSU, had taught at a school in Kentucky years ago that we competed against when I was at Overton. And we would always bring our drum lines together after certain competitions, and we'd, have the drum lines like play together, play 8 on a hand, play roll exercises.
Sure.
We have this big, huge 8 on a hand sound, jump, 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 jump,
Nice.
3 drum lines. And so he had always said, that he wanted to work with me. And so it was a perfect, segue into MTSU.
Right.
So that was 2008.
So before we get into that time where you're all both at MTSU, I want to make sure we talk about, because you're WGI Hall of Fame, class of 2014, which could have been another, part of your intro as well. Just such a really cool thing to be interviewing a WGI Hall of Famer here.
Oh, thank you so much.
And I will just talk about, how you were involved, not just with Overton and Oakland, but with the Rules Committee and the expansion of and advancement of the activity. What was your involvement in that? Because I think a lot of people, attribute you to being really crucial in a lot of that stuff. Can you just talk about how you're involved in that side of things?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I'm super honored to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'm still just honestly sometimes pinch myself, But yeah, that activity meant a lot to me. When I first started at WGI at Overton, there was like 12 drum lines, but it moved fast. It was like, first year was like 12 drum lines, and it's like tripled, it was like, doubled, 24, and then it moved fast.
What was the first year for our listeners, WGI Percussion in Dayton?
In Dayton?
Or whenever the first actual event was.
I know the first event was in a school auditorium. I think
Sounds
that
about
would
right.
have been 93, maybe.
So we're at the very beginning of the activity.
I think my first year was 94, maybe. 94, 95. 95. Yeah, it would have been 94, 95 because we came in I think we came in third, second, third, and then in 96 we won. But during that time and from about 96 through early 2000s, yeah, I mean, if you were in the top tier, then you served on the advisory board, right? And you were invited to the Rules Congress kind of things, and we didn't call it that, but it was more advisory board. And so during that time, we were, that core group of people were really kind of shaping what, we were rewriting sheets, we were redeveloping sheets, rules, what were, all the different, are we going to allow this to happen? What are the
no
rules?
livestock.
No animals.
No livestock.
No pyrotechnics.
Yeah, exactly. No livestock. That came up a lot. That was
It's in there.
hilarious. Right, I know. Rules are for a reason, right?
We almost got
Somebody's gonna try.
disqualified with our middle schoolers this year because we had an American flag and neither of us thought hey, we need to be following the flag code, and we got called on that. So, but it totally makes sense. It's just one of those things you just don't think about. So
Yeah.
someone smarter than us thought about it.
Well, I remember in particular, those days in the advisory board stuff were long days in the beginning. In fact, there was one time we were in Orlando for that meeting, and we were redoing sheets. We were revamping all the sheets, and we couldn't quite agree on some of where the visual thing was going.
Sure.
That
I
was a
bet.
real, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
But literally, we put on the door of the because percussion and guard were at that time did the same advisory weekend, and so the guard was out by 5, and we're in there till 9 p.m., battling it out. Bettis was in that room, I remember, because we got into it a couple times, and we laugh about that now. But we ended up that weekend, we put a door or a sign on the door that was the percussion sequestered for, the next 4 days.
Yeah.
We literally, but it was also that's such a valuable time, and I learned so much from everybody in the room. You're sharing, and you're just trying to figure out what's best for the kids, what's best for the trajectory of the activity. There was a lot of molding and shaping of what was to come for WGI during those years. So I think that was, I was probably on that for 8 years, 9 years. I was on that for a long time because if you were placing well, you were invited to be
Right.
And then in 2005, when our girls were 7 and 11 or something, we had won in 96. We took a year off in 97 because that 96 class were almost all seniors, and we had to revamp. And we had our second daughter in 97. So, yeah, we still participated, but we did everything just local that year. I remember literally, most people have never seen this before, but at our state indoor kind of championships, I was about 9 months pregnant in front of the drum line, pushing the Met and talking about
Oh my gosh.
accent tap. And it's okay, this is weird,
Yeah.
And so then, 98 we came back, and it was just like you guys, everybody here in the Texas experiences it sometimes, and what Lalo mentioned, when you're success, when you feel that success and your students are successful and the program is recognized, and you do feel that pressure to stay at that level, and so as you guys know, to run a program like that, it's pretty 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
And our kids.
That's without the podcast.
100%, yeah. And our kids were getting involved in their special things like the voiceover and dance and all those, and we just wanted to really support them. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take a year off from indoor and the competitive thing.
Sure.
And so what was interesting at PASIC that year, Mark Thurston was there, and Lalo ran into Mark. And
Check. I'm a Crossman alum, so we gotta give the Thurston.
There you go.
Thurston lick in there. But I digress.
Yeah, so he saw Lalo in the hallway or something, and he was just chit-chatting, and Lalo was he told Mark, yeah, Julie's going to take a year off. And he's like, what? She's going to take a year off? He's like, does she want to judge? Yeah. And he's like, you'll have to talk to her about that, And so I saw him later that weekend, and he was like, hey, we need to talk. We'd love for you to judge if you're going to take a year off. I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I'm going to be good at that. And he's like, well, I said, you know what, let me train for a year,
Yeah.
do some practice tapes and go through some training. They were just starting some like workshops and stuff. And so I did that for a season. And that was crazy because that weekend, I'll never forget that training weekend, we were making tapes up in the stands, just practice tapes, but we had the Walkman recorder.
Yeah.
And Mark had a set of headphones, and he had a splitter on the end. And literally he'd come up, and a group's getting ready to go on, and he's like, all right, Jules, plug me in. And so he's sitting next to you while you're making live commentary for
Wow.
a group. And it was like, man, that's some pressure.
pressure's on.
Pressure, and also to try not to even think about he's sitting there and like just try to do a good job at making good commentary.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, you're ready to go in. And so the next year I started judging. And that worked out for our family dynamic because at that point you could pick and choose the weekends that you gave them their availability. So I could work around all the dance recital stuff we did. And then it wasn't Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It was just
Right.
a little, we didn't have those weeknights and that kind of thing. So I found that to be a good balance. I didn't really want to leave the activity. I wanted to be involved in the activity. I wanted to try to be that person that, tried to really help groups through tape commentary. And, there's a lot of great judges out there. There were times that we get tapes that like, oh, great, amazing, 68. And I was like, okay, I want to know why this is 68.
Yeah, why?
Like,
What'd you do?
Yeah. So I felt I had a passion for like trying that part of it, and it just turned out to be a really good fit.
Well, thanks for indulging us on that a little bit. And again, just like you said, this could be a whole nother podcast, is your time in WGI and your influence. But I think for people to just hear, what it was like in those early days and the passion that came from all of you guys as educators trying to make it what it is now. And I think a lot of people look at indoor and be like, what is this thing? People looking on from the outside in. People like us involved very heavily. We've done it very heavily for 5 straight years now. It's crazy. We didn't do it my first year here, and then we've done it every year since, and we're still just like trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So I just think to hear it from you is pretty inspiring. So
Thank you.
thanks for sharing that a little bit. And that brings us to you guys are both now at MTSU. And you're the professor of percussion, right? And you're adjunct, and you're at this point in the early days running the drum line, or did that
Still.
Or you're still
Yeah.
running the drum line, but at the very beginning were you?
Yeah.
And so talk about how you guys made that. And I know there's other people on your staff as well, Russell Wharton, right? And so how what was that like in the early days, and what's kind of the culture that you guys wanted to create there?
Well, I'll talk about way before Julie and even the person before her. I was doing everything because I could, and as it kept growing I'm like going, holy man. And then we had a master's program. I said, man, this is getting crazy. But I found out that there were other adjuncts in other areas of the music, so I inquired, can I get one? And that's how Andy came on, and others. Even before Andy, there was a few others, Sean Harris and people like that. So when Julie came on board, it made my life much easier. And Andy did a phenomenal job too, but the drum line kept growing. I think at one point we had 76
Oh my
in
gosh.
the drum line, and I remember I think Julie might have called Andy and said, okay, I'm at 76 now. What did you do when you had 60 something and whatever? And we had flubs or something. We started.
Yep.
She actually helped design through the help of Pearl a little Latin,
Yeah.
on the harness bongos. I think it was a hepanique and a little timbale type thing, and it was a pretty cool setup. But anyways, I virtually have nothing to do with the drum line. It's my dream. Yeah, it has been. I mean, she does a phenomenal job, and I might go out there and just say, "Whoa, great job!"
Yeah.
It's like a cheerleader kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then was blessed that the university opened up another full-time percussion position, and Dr. Brian Mueller has been there, and he's been a godsend. The guy's just super sweetheart and great teacher, great performer.
Another UNT grad.
Another UNT.
There you go.
And then, but again, it got bigger, and so I picked up the phone, made a few phone calls, and I was introduced to Russell Horton, and so he's been in there with us this is probably his 4th year there, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just been smooth sailing. I hate to say this, but I don't really do anything because it's a machine.
Yeah.
Why should I tell her what to do when she's doing great? And same thing with the other people. We all have our jobs, and we all do it really well.
Yeah.
And we're a team. I don't take credit for anything ever, and it's a team. It's
That's
a team
awesome.
effort. So
I'm sure your students see that too. So what are some of the things just in general, obviously it's great culture and you have some really great students, and a couple shout outs. I have to make a couple shout outs to people who I know have gone through your program that I've either marched with or, yes, both marched with. So Shelby Shelton and I marched Crossman together in 2010. And so that was my first year of drum corps. So shout out Shelby Shelton. She's doing amazing things now. And Kyle Hammock, I might have told you this last time you were here. I was Kyle Hammock's section leader at Round Rock High School when he was a freshman on the vibe line.
Oh, wow.
And so to see how far he has gone and all the amazing groups that he's been performing with, and obviously to be a part of your program is just really cool to see. So, and I'm sure there's others that I'm forgetting too, but I had to make sure I stop and give a shout out to those 2 people.
It's been an awesome journey.
Yeah.
And yes, there's several. I mean, and then we can go on and on with list of people. Students.
Jack Bounds.
Jack Bounds.
Yeah.
Who's now with the
Hellcats. Oh my gosh, so proud of him.
But, again, I'm not going to take credit for any of that. That guy's a hard worker.
Yeah.
And most of the people that have Shelby and so forth, they've done it all themselves because of their work ethic.
Right.
And maybe they learned the work ethic from watching us, or they learned it in drum corps in some form or fashion, or whatever. That doesn't matter how they learned it, but they've done really well. Julie and I flew to Boston to the 400th year celebration of Zildjian, and a former student was honoring Eddie Bear's drum set. And I was like, look, that's pretty cool, And at the hotel today, I just saw that he put down that he had gone to MTSU, and that's like, that's pretty cool. I don't take credit for it. But he felt so good about his experience there that he felt like, I'm going to
put that on there.
They only gave him like a few sentences and stuff, and he put it on there, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, that's a reflection of y'all's impact on students, and so that's really awesome. So what are some other just program-wide, what do you want your students to take away? Not these rhythms or these percussion ensembles. So how do you want your, this can kind of be just y'all's plug for your program. Like, what is a student leaving your program? What are some qualities that they have that you really want them to have?
You go first. It's your program.
Well, it's our program, but I would tell this to if anybody's listening in the collegiate level, percussion profs, is to let them be creative. Let them compose, even if it doesn't sound good. I wonder sometimes when Cage wrote something and they go, oh man, this is not very good.
Yeah.
I don't know that he talked like that, but I don't think
good
that
speculation.
This is. I don't think I'm gonna scratch this cactus, or people are gonna love it. I don't really know. Hey, but he did it, and people love Cage.
Yeah.
Right? So my advice to my colleagues is let them do it, man. Because we're all and I tell my students, don't be a part of a cookie cutter school. Everyone studies the same stuff, the same method books, the same this, the same that, the latest greatest marimba solo, the latest greatest xylophone rag, and so forth. Do something different. Your favorite composer, you know of the favorite player because of what they wrote for the most part, what they composed. So that would be a good takeaway. I mean, a lot of them have gone out and they're writing for drum corps, or they're doing sound design, which is a different form of composition if you think about it.
Absolutely.
I don't teach that stuff.
Add a riser and a whoosh here. And
but we do offer it with some of the guys that teach it at MTSU.
Yeah.
We just tell them, oh, you have a class? No, it's just an applied lesson. You just don't take snare that semester. You take sound design, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I mean, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, that's great.
that's kind of.
I think there's different aspects. Like in an undergraduate situation, we really want to try to develop, like, we value our well-roundedness and the education that we got, like at North Texas, and that experience. So I think we try to encourage the students to have a baseline of, like understanding, at a certain level of being able to, achieve at a certain level on all, as an undergraduate, on, snare, timpani, keyboard, world percussion, a lot of, I would say that's a situation at MTSU that the undergraduates, when they get into their junior and senior year, they can take some world percussions. They can be in salsa band, and they do some things there that I think in a lot of programs that sometimes doesn't happen until you're in a master's program, where you can kind of, move away from the standard 3 or 4 instruments, multi-perk and that kind of stuff. And then we do offer, like, I teach some drumline composition. I've got 3
Cool.
students this semester. Russell teaches that. When Matt Jordan was there, he did some technology. And we want the students, we're encouraging them, because as you know, you can make a living in this activity now. I mean, you've got have a lot of tools in your toolbox, right? But it's not just about teaching, snare drum. Like, so the sound design thing, the technology, the writing for drumline, these, you can certainly, make a living you can piece together those different parts of what we do, revenue streams, whatever you want to call it, and create a living at that. So, so we're trying to, from a curriculum, we try to revisit the curriculum frequently. We have meetings at our house, and we're just like nerds about like pedagogy and curriculum. We're like, all right, where are things at right now, and how can we best prepare our students for that in today's climate, in today's world?
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's making those changes in the curriculum that are not comes from that kind of older school standardized, And I think one thing Lalo's really great about is he really encourages the kids to think entrepreneurially. So he's always encouraging them, and in master classes we're having those conversations, because this is a very entrepreneurial time in our, you guys are entrepreneurial, right?
Yeah,
How many different hats do you wear,
Absolutely, yeah. Without, if it seems like almost now it's like there's no hiding it. It's like everyone has their right to. We spent the day with Jeff Osmore. He's a great example of someone who, not that they're any less passionate for what they do, but it's like this is their living. He's got to go write a book and go sell a book, because that's part of doing this job really well and making a living out of it, right? We're going to do this podcast because we want people to know what we're doing, and we want people to value our opinion and all that good stuff, and maybe down the line hire us to write their battery book or front ensemble book, or have us out for a clinic. Like, it's absolutely part of it. And I think it's awesome that you're talking to students about not shying away from that. I think that's super important.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many students have gone off and been fairly successful, is because I think Lalo's encouraged that, and we try to support it in ways that every kid isn't going to be the same, right? And so trying to figure out, like, where's your passion, and then certainly you still have to hit these markers, but then we're going to try to help you, like, go down the lane that you want to go down, and some of that's just what I call the pre-professional stuff too. It's just like all the work ethic things, all the professional mindset things, and showing up on time, and follow through, and good people skills, and taking advantage of anything professionally that we, like PAS and things that we have to offer, and so trying to encourage them to take advantage of all those resources too.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into PAS in a second, but I think this is a really good segue to get into like the meat and potatoes of the podcast, which is, this is a dream job for all of us sitting here. Very unique journey, but we're all brought together to talk about percussion and music education. And I just want to give you all a chance to talk about, you talked about encouraging students to be unique in their journey and creating their own path. And I think that's where maybe a lot of people are experiencing that burnout, especially in Texas, because there's so much of the same thing over and over again. So finding the uniqueness in their job, or whatever it is that ignites their passion. Talk about how you guys personally have, continued to reignite your own passion for this, and what advice you would have for, either current college students or people who recently, maybe young first 5-year percussion director, music educator, so that they can create longevity and keep their passion in this industry.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
But
I like to
but-
talk.
Well,
Sorry.
no, that's a lot, a lot of topics in that, what you just said. I do read about, through social media, about the teacher burn out and so forth, particularly not just the older guys, but even the young guys.
Yeah.
After 2 years, yeah, I'm done. And I don't, you guys are in the thick of it. You would know the answer more than I. But I would say, during my short tenure as a public school teacher, I didn't, we were winning competitions and stuff, and that was fine and everything. But what I would tell young people is that winning a contest or not winning a contest doesn't define who you are. And your heart defines you. It's where your heart is at. And so if you're having fun teaching, and the kids are having fun learning, and you see progress, that's all that matters. That's silly, and I tell my students this too, that $38 plaque that you're going to get that says you got first, second, or third place, I'll give you $38 and I'll buy you a plaque, because that should not define somebody. Sadly, it's part of the activity, I get it, but it's not an end-all, be-all.
Right.
So how do you remedy that? I don't know, other than don't let it happen.
Yeah.
And if the parents know your it's important to have a philosophy, first of all. And if your parents know that, what that philosophy is, and the student knows that, and I hate to say this, even more importantly, the administration knows that, then you're going to be okay. In
Yeah.
Tennessee, we have some non-competitive groups, non-competitive bands. And they have a rock band class, they have a jazz band class, they have a composition class, they have a theory class. I know in Texas it's a little difficult because you have to do UIL regardless.
Right.
But you don't have to do indoor drumline.
Right.
As far as I know, right?
Nope.
And so, but you can do it if you want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody needs to be on the same page. You're going to do it, and you're going to have fun doing it. Because if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. I hate to sound cliches, but it's true.
Yeah.
So I on that topic, that would be the only thing I could say. I'm not in it. I'm at the college level. I haven't experienced burnout yet at the college level, because like I said, we have a machine. We kind of do our own thing. There are some things that are entirely out of my control. I'd love to have a new building. Right? I don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime, but it's out of my control. I can dwell on it. I can get mad about it, but you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
I don't know that answered your question.
No, that's great to get your insight on that. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that. I think as I've gotten older, my philosophies have changed a little bit. I think I'm trying to pay more attention to, it's very cliche, but work-life balance.
Yep.
There's times where I do that okay, and there's times where I don't do that okay, like we all. I think, I lead up, you had mentioned basketball and coach and John Wooden and different books and things, and I'm kind of a book nerd in terms of all the coaches' books, and I think, and all the, like, Adam Grant, I don't know if you follow Adam Grant, but creating your set of, I think, personally and within your group, creating your just taking some time to reflect on what are your core values. What are your personal core values? What is the core values that I want my program to operate around? And what is kind of our mission statement of that? And I think, honestly, that's time well spent to just sit in that a little bit and go, what are our core values? And how can, I think competition, can be really healthy if it's done in the right way, because I think it can get, it's proven to get students to rise to a level of, standards, right? And but what's the impetus for that? Is that for these students to reach their fullest potential, or for us to win trophies? Is like Lalo. And so, it's that, for me, it's like just going after, like, I want to get these students to reach their fullest potential. Like my basketball coach, that was one of his big things. We could win a game by 40 points, but if we made a lot of poor decisions and whatever, we were running the next, the next practice, the whole practice. I was like, we won by 40,
Yeah.
And, but we weren't playing to our potential, and I think going even back to that group I brought to Dallas, when I was preparing them for that, the rehearsals were not thinking about coming here and winning. We had no chance to do that, but it was, I got to get these students to reach their fullest potential.
Yeah.
I have experienced in the last few years some burnout, and some times where, like, literally I'm laying in bed going, and I haven't said that in a long time, but I hate the way I feel right now, and I hate everything I'm doing. I do not want to, like, I need a break, so usually when that happens, I would say in the last, like, 5 or 6 years, that's happened about 3 times. And what I find that I have to do is kind of step away a little bit and just, like, get outside a little bit, take some walks, get more sleep. Most of the time it's say no to things. That's been a big thing. I told Lalo last week, I said no to 2 things this week. It's so hard to say no because, we all know, like, we have the opportunity to do just amazing things in this life. And we don't want to miss anything,
Yeah.
And so it's so easy, to say yes to everybody, or to say yes to this experience. And I've been trying to be a little more cautious with that. Like, okay, I really want to do this, but I've also got these things going on, and I know that I have to be careful because I have reached those moments of burnout. So I have to try to think a little bit more ahead and go, yeah, I think this would be healthier if I not take it this time, not take that gig this time, or not, whatever. And so just trying to take some moments of pause and going, is this really what I need to put on my plate right now?
Yeah.
And with our students, we're seeing a lot, I think in the last 7 or 8 years, a lot more students that come in and really fighting the burnout. But of course, now they're, when we were in school, we did indoor with North Texas, but we weren't doing drum corps indoor, school, like what some of these kids are trying to balance over and over. It's, and they're not some of them don't do school really well, because, when you're doing indoor and you're in college, you get about 4 days a week to practice and to keep up, and that's tough. So we spend a lot of time. I feel like I'm in a counselor, when they come into a lesson, and I'll sometimes maybe a lesson is just like, all right, well, let's look at the schedule. Let's get out a piece of paper. What are your non-negotiables? Cool. Put those in. All right, now what are, how many hours you're taking? What class takes the most amount of time? When you're going to practice, and it's just literally
Time management skills.
management.
That's even at the high school level. I think I try to talk about that quite often. Like, how, I'm kind of drowning in my classes. I'm kind of drowning with all the band stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's lay it out. Have you written it out? Have you, like, really physically written it out? And you can see it right there. Oh, you know what? That hour of TV time probably doesn't need to go there. I'd probably be some more productive, right? Or I talk about being present a lot. Like, schedule your hour of TV time, but make sure that all your ducks are in a row before that, so that you can really enjoy that hour. You're not thinking about, I'm doing this and I should be doing X, Y, or Z. I can just really enjoy this. And now I'm in a practice time. I'm really gonna attack this and do it well, so that when I get to hanging out with my friends, I can just be there.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
And I'm a big list maker, and I'm encouraging our students to make lists. It seems like they're really struggling with some coping skills sometimes these days, and I think it's because they're just carrying it all, in here. And so I'll talk to students like that time management and getting the schedule out, right? It gets it out of trying to carry it all in your head, right? And then you can be more efficient. If you're more efficient, schedule lunch, schedule breakfast, schedule TV time, right? But then when you see, oh, I didn't realize I had this much time in the day, I could get this done, you're going to feel better about that when it's intentional. And you're
Right.
not just like, getting through the day to get to the next day and getting
Right.
through that
It's not a
day.
whim.
And then the list making, I have a lot of students who are like, oh, I do it on my phone. And I'm kind of old school. I really believe in, one, writing it out, stop carrying it all up here, and we look at screens enough. But for the mental health aspect of it, I said the feeling of crossing something off is so satisfying.
Yeah, powerful.
It's powerful. And and I said, I might, it's like on a Saturday, I might, have a list of all the things I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to, blah, 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 all these things, and I'll write it out. And I was like, I might have 12 things on my list. I might get to 10 of them. And the great feeling you ever do this, and you cross it out, and you're like, next thing, and it fires you up,
Yeah.
next thing. I said, the thing,
Snowball effect.
I said, it feels good. You can track it. You're not trying to like remember what you need to do next. And I said, even if you get to 8 out of 12, you got to 8 out of 12.
Yeah.
So the Zig Ziglar phrase, like if you shoot at nothing, you'll hit it every time.
Yeah.
And that's to me, if you're just trying to carry it all. And so just trying to have strategies, trying to encourage the students and trying to help them create protocols and strategies that are going to help them like not get burned out, or at least have some coping skills. Whoa, I need to step back, and I need to do this. And even if it's like some kids, I'm like, get out of the practice room a little bit. Like, what do you like to do? Do you like to be outside? We've got a couple students right now getting into climbing. They're loving doing like the indoor climbing stuff. It's like you have to have some balance.
Yeah.
And I would encourage, I know Texas is its own thing. It's so hard. I feel like, the expectation is so high. But that core values, right? And then balance, like find that balance. I think what Lalo said, the students, have to have a great, it has to feel like a community, like they have a safe place, and it's fun to be together, and it's fun to work hard together. Fun comes in different colors, right?
Sure.
And so like your program, you should see your kids have a blast, but they have a blast and they're working really hard. They're
Yeah.
kind of fired up about work ethic, you
Yeah.
know. So
And
yeah.
other things. We try
Yeah.
to fire them up about other things, but work
Yeah.
ethic is probably the most important one for
Yeah.
sure for the success of our program.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys both for sharing that, and every guest we've had has had their own little flavor of how to encourage people, not just students but professionals like us to be, have a good work-life balance and just not to have one, but just always work at one, and so I appreciate you guys sharing that, and we're going to pause it and then come back and talk a little Percussive Arts Society and wrap up here with some silly segments, and then that'll be it.
All right.
All right, so we're back on our last segment here, and it's been just a great interview, and looking forward to, hey, Lalo, we're not done quite yet.
We're not done.
Hey, buddy.
It
All
wasn't
right.
that long of an answer.
Yeah.
It's almost midnight.
Yeah. It's getting there.
He's not lying.
It's getting there. Yeah. We don't blame you. It is for our listeners. This is the latest episode of the Dream Job podcast that we've ever done.
After the longest day,
After the longest day.
with the least amount of sleep previous.
That's
I
true.
thought about this since about 7.
The stats are not in our favor,
Yeah.
but this has turned out to be a great episode
Yeah.
with Julie and Lalo Davila, and we really appreciate you guys coming on. And we're going to just do a couple wrap-up segments here and just talk about, we want to talk about Percussive Arts Society. We are in the presence of PAS President right here, which is another accolade that we haven't gotten to yet. Julie, you're just so impressive. Lalo, come on, man. What?
Hey, I'm just her husband.
That's his favorite line these days. So cute.
So, obviously, Percussive Arts Society, the organization for percussionists, students, musicians, composers, and, I know you probably want to share just what's been your experience, what's been the impact of that PAS has had on both of you, and what do you want the world to know about Percussive Arts Society in today's age?
You want to go first? Okay. Yeah, and I'm going to try to keep, I know I've gotten really long-winded, so I'm really sorry about
No,
that.
you're great.
I got to say, I knew, Percussive Arts Society, just really quick, I knew when I was in 5th, 6th grade that this is what I wanted to do forever. I knew it. Like, the only other thing that may have creeped in as a thought would be a counselor, But I 100% knew I wanted to be a percussionist, and this is what I wanted to do with my life. So, I chased that, and stayed with it, and I knew that was the direction. And I would say I was in school in the late 70s, early 80s. There weren't a lot of women in percussion. There were not a lot of models. I didn't, maybe Sheila E. a little bit was kind of around. Karen Carpenter. I'm going to really date myself, but there just wasn't a lot. So when I got to North Texas and went to 85 PAS for the first time in California, and experiencing PAS for the first time, I think I've said tonight that certain things have changed your life, and that changed my life. Like, it was like, I knew I wanted to do it, but I really know this is a community I want to be a part of. That first PAS, I remember walking through the hall and looking at tags, and going, oh my gosh, there's Vic Firth. Oh my gosh, there's Armin Zildjian,
a lot of people's
Remo Belli.
origin stories, like their first PAS, like going, forever, this is what I want to do,
Yeah. Gar Whaley, like all the superstars. You're like, wow, these are people, I didn't even know Remo Belli was a person at that point, and then being able to be a part of it, perform at PAS with the drum line. And that's why I really want to encourage, we really try to encourage as many students as we can. There's so many great opportunities now to I feel like being active at PAS makes it even a more enriching experience. So there's chamber, competition, there's individuals, there's mock auditions. That's one of the things, and Brian Zader was a big part of that, Dr. Zader, when he was president, of we did the core value thing. We kind of stepped back and we spent almost a year really trying to filter the executive committee is looking at what are our core values, because we're a little spread thin. We need to dial it in and then go after that. And interactive experiences was one of those core values. And I know for me, going to PASIC and feeling like you were participating at PASIC, not going to PASIC and being talked to, it really changes that experience. So I would really encourage everyone to take advantage of any of the interactive experiences. The University Student Committee, which Texan right now, Emily McGee, is kind of the president of that. When she was at TCU, we brought her in to direct that, and she's done such a great job. We've kind of just had her keep with it for a little bit, but encouraging university students to get involved with that. It's an amazing opportunity for to network and to start to learn more about the leadership aspect of PAS. And quite frankly, we really wanted to build that University Student Committee because we need that feedback from that next generation. We need to be collaborating. We're PASIC lifers, and the Mark Ford and Jim Camp, all the people that are kind of our age, we're lifers. You don't have to sell us. But in this day and age, a lot of younger students aren't becoming members of things like membership, right? It's kind of everything's kind of, you can get access a lot here. Yeah. But it is that relationship building, career opportunities, interactive experiences, we're doing a huge website revamp right now. Our website coming out in May of 2024 is going to be outstanding resource. We have group memberships. Yep. You guys are part of that. Yep. So I think PASIC is getting better and better. I think we're tracking this year to have the highest number. Our hotel registrations are way up. Yeah. Everything is tracking to be the largest in PASIC to date. Wow. So that's exciting. I think finally coming out of COVID and building. Right. So I feel like we're heading in the right direction to keep it healthy, and just hope that that we continue to be able to get that next generation engaged. So yeah.
Speaking to just being at PASIC and being wide-eyed, I mean, that was 100% our kids' experience last year. Getting to perform was something I didn't even think about. Was being there and then them having their drumhead and just going to get it signed by EMC Productions and Dr. Zader and Nathan Daughtry and all these people that they've heard of, and then they're there and they're like, oh my gosh, this percussion world that I've invested so much in, and I see the names on the Region Etude, or I see the names on the website, and now I can go up to this person and interact with them and go watch their kids play or go watch them perform. It's like that experience right there is what makes PASIC so cool.
Yeah.
And Percussive Arts Society. So 100% endorse that. And again, the website is amazing as it is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to look like. But it's group membership week, right?
Yep.
And so like perfect time to talk about this. Super affordable. I think it's $250 for
Yep.
any program, and every student in your program gets a membership, and the director gets a membership as well. You get this is a free ad, by the way, PASIC, PAS, and you get the percussive notes every month in the mail for your studio, and the coolest thing about it is you get the free master class with the PAS master artist. So we've had Dr. Zader out a couple times, which have been great experiences both times. But we might diversify that again this year.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking into that. But PAS group membership, make sure every program in Texas should have, or every program in the world should have that, in my opinion.
I mean, by the time the director gets a free membership and you have a free clinic, you've paid for
The whole
the
thing.
whole thing.
And
all your students
get one.
benefit.
And you could submit for contests.
Yeah.
You're eligible for that, and
Days
all
of
that good stuff.
percussion, yeah.
So the benefits just keep piling up. So, Lalo, you with us enough to give us an answer?
I mean, you guys have covered everything. My first PASIC was in 1980, I think.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah.
I mean, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You said something really interesting. This is the in-person experience. There's no substitute. I mean, you can look at YouTube. But to be right here,
Right.
with what you just saw on YouTube is actually sitting 5 feet from you,
Yeah.
performing, and you're there. There's no substitute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do a good job with that. I saw you this year walking around with students. Hey, what was their favorite thing about
Yeah.
PASIC? What was your favorite thing you saw? You did. I don't know if that's something you do every year, but that
No,
was really cool to see.
I did it for me because I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I go, why should I be the only one to know?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of compiled it and put it out there.
Yeah. Love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. And it's like I said, everyone can. I think many percussionists could harken back to, man, my first PASIC was transformative.
Yeah.
And I share the same thing, and I think it was so cool for us to share that with our students. That was like super sentimental for me. To see them go, whoa, I've never seen this many drums, cymbals, and great percussions in one place at one time. It's not like this when I go to high school every 5 days a week. This is completely people that share my passion, and it's a different level of connection with people. I thought they really kind of hung on to that, and it was really awesome to be a small part of that experience with them.
And hopefully, in addition to going to PASIC, the convention, we see more PAS Day of Percussions. I know we had a really successful one in the North Texas area this past year, and hopefully that'll continue and expand and all that good stuff. So,
Yeah, we're
Percussive
working,
Arts.
Percussive Arts Society, working, PASIC is amazing, it's our premier program, but we're really working on expanding all the initiatives year-round. So that's also coming and has been a work in progress.
awesome. Well, thank you for all the hard work
Yeah.
you do for that, and I know it's a lot. And are we on? This is year one of your
Yeah, this is like the 7 month in, but when you
7 month. We're month by month
Yeah.
here.
But when you're on the executive committee, honestly, and you work towards that, you kind of move through different responsibilities. It ends up being a 10-year commitment.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Because like first position is 2, then you go, that's like secretary, then you go into second vice president, and that becomes you're the liaison to the committees, right? So you start working with all the committee leaders, and then when you're president-elect, you're working with all the chapter presidents. So by the time you go and move into that like president kind of seat, you've kind of worked with a lot of the leadership over what makes PAS really, work.
Right.
This is all this body of volunteers. And then so that's 2 years, so that's 2, 4, 6. So I guess it's 8 years, I guess, or no, 8. So yeah, 2, 4, and then you've got the 2 years. I'm tired.
No.
Let me get out my calculator too.
I know.
And then 2 years as past president, and so it's like a 10-year commitment.
Wow.
But it's so worth it. I've learned so much in serving the PAS executive board, and so many great people really passionate about PAS, some really smart people, and we've had some heated conversations.
Yep.
And we come out, I think, on top, and just keep moving in the right direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you both for being here with us today. And I know it's late, and we keep coming back to that because we're both everyone's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. But we've got a couple just quick little segments here to kind of wrap up, and some fan favorites. And the thing we talked about that you guys can't let me forget, we're going to do the last thing in this podcast. We're going to do that thing that we talked about that you like to do. Right, but first we've got.
Can anybody guess what that's gonna be? I wonder out there.
I think.
Okay, just
A couple.
Yeah.
think about it.
I think so. And they'll see it. So this is Shannon's podcast. This is a good idea, bad idea.
Good idea, bad idea.
So,
Right.
he'll talk
We'll kind of
about
go back and forth a little bit. Right? This is for both of you guys. Good idea, bad idea. Marrying a percussionist.
Great idea.
Yeah. Yep, great idea.
Awesome. All right. This is for Lalo. Eating Tex-Mex in Tennessee.
Well, there's some places in Murfreesboro that are actually pretty good.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would say okay idea.
Okay.
Okay idea.
Oh,
Nice.
this is
Be very selective.
Yeah.
All right. For Julie, Tex-Mex in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, no. But I don't really eat that whole weekend, so I don't even,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. For both of you guys, as a couple, watching the next episode in the series you're watching without your spouse.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. That's something we really enjoy is getting, involved in a series. And that's something like we're coming home from work and it's been so crazy. And then, we can just like, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Hot chip challenge.
Hot chip.
Yeah, you've seen those
Familiar with the
super
hot chip challenge?
super spicy, like one chip. If you can get it down without having a heart attack, you win.
Bad idea.
Oh, you've never done it before? Well, I've got a surprise for you. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, wow.
No, I mean, for me, it's a bad idea just because I'm older and I get heartburn.
Yeah, I was going to say it's spicy.
She would
stuff.
agree.
Objectively bad idea.
Right.
Although I can eat hot stuff. I can eat pico de gallo. I can eat a hot pepper and stuff. It's just certain hot stuff I stay away from.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
I say bad idea just because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to be around him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wearing socks to bed. Good idea. Bad idea.
Good idea.
Good idea.
That's my
Bad idea. For me, anyways.
Yeah.
She wears that.
every night. If
I
my
was
feet
quick
are-
to jump in on that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All the sock to bed wearers of the world.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Like, is there?
I think so. I
Yeah, I
think
think
we've
it's a
we've
thing.
had some different
Really?
answers to that one. Yeah.
Right. There's those communities are very divided.
Yeah.
I start with it, but they're off by because
yeah.
if my feet are cold, then
I can see that.
I have to kind of if my feet are cold, then I can't go to sleep.
Right.
But then in the middle of the night,
And
I'm
you
like,
get hot.
You get them
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last one here. This is for both of you guys, but interested to hear the different perspectives. Good idea, bad idea, interacting with strangers.
ooh.
I do it all the time.
He does it all the
That's
time.
why every time I'm with Lalo, it doesn't matter who, and people are like shocked at how comfortable you are with people.
Well, and they can't see a picture, but I was on the elevator at the hotel, and one of the workers there, he goes, I can't do his accent. He goes, "You happy all the time?"
Yeah.
Because I would say hello early in the morning and stuff, and he goes, "I like your shirt," and we had the exact same shirt on.
Oh,
So
nice.
we took a picture together.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I don't know, I've always, that's just always been me. But you got to be selective too.
All right.
Yeah.
You're rarely selective though.
You ever,
But his thing is kids too. And he sees kids, he's got to like talk to them and play a game with them or make a sound or whatever. And what's funny is our girls are like, "Dad, you can't do that." Like
Yeah.
some of these parents think you're a creepy guy, Like this guy.
in today's day and age, right?
But his intentions are really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
nice. But yeah.
He's watching the line. I can see him watch
Yeah.
the line. But I've never been around you when you cross it with anybody. It's always funny. There you go.
Those are our segment. Good
Yeah.
idea, bad idea.
Nice.
Thanks for. But it was also another great segue to our final little thing here, which is we're gonna do a happy birthday for your Facebook posts.
All right, you
here.
ready?
So, can you walk us through one more time?
Yeah.
So we all understand the instructions.
So I do an occasional happy birthday wish
Every day to every one of his friends.
on Facebook page, and it all started during COVID, because I was bored, and I saw an app where I could be like 5 Lalos or 4 Lalos or 12 Lalos. That'd be pretty cool, and I like doing voiceover stuff, so it kept me busy. And so I would just, it depend who the person was, and I'd say, hey, guess whose birthday it is, da-da-da, and then I would just send it off. And I think Julie says, how many do you have? I think I got over, well, I was doing one every day.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So
playing in most of them.
Playing and singing. So
And
I've
singing?
got probably 400 maybe videos.
And you got another
All
great
different.
one from your trip down to Texas today. That'll.
Oh yeah, and I've already used it. So
No, you have
Premiered-
not.
I did, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna
Did
look
you?
for it.
Okay, it's
Okay.
pretty epic. As much as I don't even like, I mean, everybody loves it.
She's trying to hesitate. She
Yeah.
hesitates.
This
to
one was
support
pretty
this.
epic.
there's some good ones out there that I actually really like. But anyways, so basically it says, guess whose birthday it is?
Yeah,
It's your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
got it.
And then
We're singing.
have a nice day. Yes. So anyway, to all you cats out there, guess whose birthday it is? It's your birthday. Happy birthday to you. Have a great day.
Dream job.
What a great episode, guys.
Yeah, and that concludes the 9th episode of the Dream Job podcast. Thank you so much, Julie Davila and Lalo Davila, for joining myself and Shannon Jacobs after a long day of judging for you, long day of clinicking here in North Texas. It's been an honor to have you guys on the podcast. So thank you so
Awesome.
much
Thanks.
for coming on.
Thank you for
It's
having
been
us.
an honor to be here with you guys. A
Yeah.
blast.
Thank you. Thank
Let's
you.
all go home and get some rest, and you guys get back home for tomorrow night.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Adios.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.